Hello. I'm going to read the digest, the summary, the plot of the novel The Idiot by Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoyevsky from an old book of mine I have here. Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoyevsky, the writer, was born in 1821 and died in 1881 at the age of 60. The type of work, The Idiot, is the novel. The type of plot is psychological realism. The time of plot is mid-19th century. Locale is St. Petersburg, Russia. First published in 1868-1869. Principal characters are Prince Lev Nikolaevich Myshkin, Parfen Rogozhin, friend of the prince, Mademoiselle Yepanchin, friend and relative of the prince. No, actually she's madame, she's a married woman. Aglaya Yepanchin. In Russian, for women we have A ending, so it will be Yepanchina. But in English they don't put A in the end of the last name. Yepanchin, her daughter. Nastasia Filipovna, mistake here in the book I see. It's Nastasia, Anastasia name. Nastasia Filipovna, Aglaya's rival. Young woman, very beautiful woman, Nastasia Filipovna. Ganya Ardalionovich. Ganya is the first name. Ardalionovich is a very weird sounds for Russians too. Patronymic. That means that his father's name was Ardalion. So Ganya Ardalionovich is a secretary to General Yepanchin. Critic. Because this book was written by the author of Crime and Punishment and the brothers Karamazov, it will always have a significant place in literature. Like so many characters in Russian fiction, however, the people in this novel exhibit a behavior so foreign to the American temperament that the majority of readers may find the entire story rather incredible. Perhaps the most serious handicap lies in the author's portrayal of Prince Myshkin. It would seem that he is meant to be the foil for the other characters, the person who seems foolish, but is in reality very wise and good. But the fact that the prince suffers from epilepsy confuses the issue, and one wonders if he really is an idiot. However, as a panorama of Russian morals, manners, and philosophy of the period, The Idiot is an interesting and informative novel. The story. After 4 years spent in Switzerland, where he was treated for epilepsy at a sanitarium, Prince Myshkin returned to St. Petersburg. On the train, the threadbare shabbiness of his clothing attracted the attention of the other passengers. One of these, Parfen Rogozhin, began to question him. By the time they reached St. Petersburg, the prince and Rogozhin were well informed about one another, and Rogozhin offered to take the prince to his home and to give him money. Myshkin, however, first wanted to introduce himself to General Yepanchin, whose wife was distantly related to him. For listeners, I will just say general information since I'm Russian and I'm an educator. I will tell you the general information about the last name Myshkin. For English listener, it may sound just Myshkin, but for Russians, Mysh is a mouse. So his last name is kind of mouse. He's a mouse, Myshkin, like belonging to a mouse. I just thought that it's important to say. At the Ipanchin home, he met the general and his secretary, Ganya, who invited him to become one of his mother's boarders. The prince interested the general, who gave him some money, and he also fascinated the general's wife and 3 daughters. His lack of sophistication, his naivete, his frankness charmed and amused the family. Soon they began to call him the idiot, half in jest, half in earnest, but he remained on good terms with them. Ganya, a selfish young man given to all kinds of scheming, wanted to marry the beautiful Aglaya Ipanchin, chiefly for her money. At the time, he was also involved in an affair with the notorious Nastasia. For some reason, here, second time they write with mistake here in the book. Nastasia doesn't make sense at all, because we have Natalia, which is Natasha, Natalia, but they make this mistake. I see that it is not by chance. The second time they write, her name is Nastasia. Nastasia is from Anastasia. This is different name, so they write with mistake here, but I pronounce correctly. The notorious Nastasia, an attractive young woman who lived under the protection of a man she did not love. Extremely emotional and neurotic, Nastasia was really innocent of the sins charged against her. Myshkin realized her helplessness and pitied her. At a drinking party one night, soon after his arrival, he asked her to marry him, saying that he had received an unexpected inheritance. She refused, declaring that she had no desire to cause his ruin. Instead, she went with Rogozhin, who had brought her 100,000 rubles. I will note that at that time, in Tsar's time, rubles were very expensive. I mean, not like now. So it was very big money. 100,000 rubles was very big money at that time. More than ever, Nastasia became the object of spirited controversy among the Ipanchins and their circle. Myshkin alone remained unembittered and always kind-hearted. Ganya and Rogozhin poured out their troubles to him, bared the sordidness and shamelessness of their lives, and swore undying friendship for him. Nevertheless, they distrusted Myshkin and plotted against him. When Nastasia left Rogozhin, he swore that he would kill the idiot, because he was sure that Nastasia had fled from him because she really loved Myshkin. Myshkin then became the victim of the extortion attempt. During a violent, repugnant scene at which the Ipanchins were present, he successfully refuted the charge that he had deprived Rogozhin's supposed illegitimate son of his rightful heritage. Having proved that the individual who sought the money was not the illegitimate son, he then, to the disgust of Madame Ipanchin, offered to give money to the extortionist and to become his friend. Madame Ipanchin considered the prince more of an idiot than ever. Meanwhile, Aglaya Ipanchin fell in love with Myshkin, but she continued to treat him scornfully and at first refused to admit that she was in love with him. When her true feelings at last became apparent, Madame Ipanchin gave reluctant consent to their betrothal and planned an evening party to introduce Myshkin to St. Petersburg society. Worried lest he should commit some social blunder, she and her daughter advised him to sit quietly and to say nothing during the evening. But at the party, Madame Ipanchin herself drew out the prince, so that he was soon launched on one of his wild and peculiar conversations. The state conservative guests were astounded. In the midst of the discussion, he knocked over a huge and priceless vase, then stared at the debris like an idiot. A few minutes later, he fell into an epileptic fit and had to be carried to his home. For several days, the Epanchins were called to him, but Madame Epanchin finally relented and invited him to their home once more. In the meantime, Aglaya had been corresponding with Nastasia, and a friendship had strangely developed between them. One evening, Aglaya asked Myshkin to go with her to see Nastasia. In Nastasia's apartment, a hectic and turbulent argument developed, so that the two women showed their anger and bitterness against each other. For the first time, Aglaya revealed fully her love for Myshkin. During the argument, Nastasia fainted. When Myshkin rushed to her aid, Aglaya considered herself rejected and angrily left the house. The scene between the two women became a scandal, and the Epanchins barred their home to Myshkin. Nastasia agreed to marry him and made preparations for the wedding. But on the day of the wedding, while Myshkin waited at the church, Nastasia fled with Rogozhin, still haunted by her own helplessness and his terrible possessiveness. Myshkin received the news calmly. Although there were many who laughed at the idiot, there were some who were sorry for him when he attempted to discover Nastasia's whereabouts. He left the village where the ceremony was to have been performed and went to the city. There he inquired among Nastasia's acquaintances, but nobody knew where she was. Finally, he went to Rogozhin's apartment and learned from a porter that Rogozhin had slept there the previous night. Myshkin continued his search, convinced that Rogozhin would kill him if he could. But Rogozhin himself stopped him on the street and took him to the apartment, where Myshkin found Nastasia lying on the bed. Rogozhin had killed her. Filled with compassion for the miserable Rogozhin, Myshkin spent that night with the body of Nastasia and her murderer. At daybreak, Nastasia's worried friends and the police broke into the apartment. Rogozhin confessed to the murder. Myshkin was questioned by the police, but he was not implicated in the crime. He was sent back to the sanitarium in Switzerland, where he was visited from time to time by the Epanchin family and other friends. There was little hope that he would ever recover from his epilepsy.